Hello, this is IP Stories by 4IP Council, a podcast about innovation and intellectual property. Join us and you'll hear about the journeys through invention, creation, and IP understanding of our guests.
I'm Marta.
And my name is Axel. And today we are very happy to welcome to our podcast Timothée Le Quesne. Timothée, thank you so much for coming to our podcast. Before we get to the details of your position as co-founder and CEO of energysquare, we would like to know more about you and your background. What led you to where you are today?
Hello everyone, and thank you very much for hosting me in this podcast. So yes, I'm Timothée Le Quesne, co-founder and CEO of energysquare. It's a company we started in 2015, so 8 years ago. And before that, before starting this company, I was a student in a French engineering school called Telecom Paris. I also have 1 year of studies in Singapore at the National University of Singapore. And the reason why I started this project is that, as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to build new things, to develop new physical things, not only software, but some things that you can touch and handle, so kind of inventions. And during my years at Telecom, so this French engineering school, I've been placed in the right environment to do so. And also I met the right people to do so. And this is how I got lucky enough to start the company just after my studies in 2015.
I guess this is where you met Daniel Lolo and Mathieu Podats. When you joined them to start this entrepreneurial adventure, did you already have this goal of getting rid of cables of the devices that we use to charge, or were you considering different alternatives?
So we met each other in 2014 during our studies, and we participated at the time in the same student competition. So the name of the student competition was Art Science Prize, and it was quite an interesting approach because the idea was to bring together engineering students and designer students, and to spend 6 months together in very small teams of 3 or 4, and to build a project that was mixing design and engineering. So it was mainly to bring a physical product that you could touch and showcase at the end of the year. And the theme of our year was the future of energy. So it was quite wide, and we had to narrow a little bit our research and what we wanted to focus on. And so we decided with Mathieu and Daniel to focus on charging and on the question of how do we make sure that our devices are always charged and always have a battery, because as a user, it's a high frustration when you don't have a battery anymore on your device, and it's one of the main reasons why people don't like their devices, don't like using it, and why sometimes they stop using it, because when you forget 1, 2, 3 times to charge your device, then you stop using it. And the solution to charging at the time was mainly cables. And as you know, cables are not ergonomic. They are always tangled. They break easily. And often it's quite a mess on your desk when you need to charge 2, 3 devices. You have cables everywhere. So our main idea and the project that we wanted to develop is to say, okay, um, our devices spend a lot of time lying on flat surfaces around us. We always put it on our desks, on nightstands, on tables, etc. So what we wanted to do is to make the most of this time that our devices spend on surface to charge it. And so we start developing a technology that was allowing to charge devices over an entire surface and not only over a single point as inductive charging does. So this was the really core of the project. And 10 years after, it's always the same idea that we develop.
One of the issues that I would add to having so many cables is that cats love to chew them. I definitely agree that it's a good idea to get rid of them. So how long did it take? You said 10 years to find the technological solution, or to bring it to the market. Like, how did it develop after that? At what point did you decide that you had a product that you could start commercializing?
So during our studies, we spent about 1.5 years prototyping the first pieces of technology. And we were very lucky because we got the help of our teachers and of our school who financed our first prototype. So they helped us buying the hardware and the components. And then after 1.5 years, we went full time on the project with Daniel in 2015. We started the company. Mathieu joined us full time a few years after, and then it took us about 6 extra months to have real working prototypes that we could show to potential clients or investors. And at that time, so it was in 2016, our main goal was to bring a product to the market, a B2C product. And so we started preparing a crowdfunding campaign on a Kickstarter website. So we spent about 6 months preparing this campaign because you need to do a lot of marketing before you actually launch the campaign and the product. And you need to make sure that a lot of people are behind their screens ready to buy the product when you push the button and launch the campaign. And the campaign was quite successful. So it was a first market validation of our technology. The product at the time being was a charging pad for smartphones, and it was sold with small adapters that you could plug and install on your smartphone. And then we spent about 1.5 years industrializing those products and delivering it to the people who bought it on Kickstarter. And in 2018, we totally changed our business model. We decided to stop manufacturing and selling our own products, and we switched to a full 100% licensing business model because our goal at the time was to become a standard and to embed our technology in as many devices as possible. And the best way of doing it was to have a licensing business model.
That's so interesting. And before we move into, because we definitely want to know more about your business model, I think it's very interesting what you said about how long it takes to prepare a crowdfunding campaign, because sometimes people don't realize that it takes so much previous work. So this is something very important for all the entrepreneurs out there to know, definitely. And also, like, in terms of exploring the market, did you have any competitors that you had to, differentiate from, or uh, yeah, how
Yeah.
was the market research?
So if you want to charge a device without a cable, without plugging it in, you have two choices. Either you use inductive charging technologies, so you use electromagnetic field to charge devices, or you use contact-based technology, so you create a metal-to-metal contact between a charging pad and a device. And the issue with inductive approach is that um, induction have its own limits that are really inherent to the laws of physics, and you cannot change the laws of physics. So they will always have those limits. And the limits are that it loses a lot of energy during the charging, at least 30%. So there is a real waste of energy. And then you need to place your device very precisely over a transmitting coil. So the user interface is not so ergonomic, and the charging speed is quite low, and the cost is quite expensive for the device manufacturers. So our main competitor is inductive charging, but inductive today is embedded only in high-end smartphones because it cannot target a lot of other kinds of markets. And so we decided to focus on all the markets that couldn't be reached by inductive charging technologies because it had been standardized on smartphones, so it had quite a high inertia, I would say, on the smartphone market. And so we decided to focus on other use cases like charging notebook laptops, tablets, gaming controllers, audio headsets, or all those kind of devices that you need to charge daily.
That's brilliant. I mean, I'm amazed that you started fresh from school building hardware, which is one of the most difficult thing to do. And then you refer to an education program that you followed after the engineering school. What I'm wondering is, where did you learn about licensing, intellectual property rights? Because it seems to be at the core of your current activity and business model. So can you tell us more about this, please?
Yeah. So I didn't know much about IP as a student. I had never read a patent in my engineering school, but we were very lucky at the very beginning of the company when we went full time to meet people from ENP, which is the French IP agency. And they spent a lot of time explaining us what is IP, what is a patent, how we should start building our IP. And then we were also lucky enough to have very fast a first industrial partner with a very strong IP culture. So they also helped us thinking about how to manage our IP and to build our first IP assets. And this is why we started investing in IP from day one. And since we kept a high investment levels. And after the years, so in 2018, when we decided to pivot from, I would say, mass market product industrialization and sales to licensing, this is when we really decided to invest heavily in IP, develop not only one or two patents, but a patent portfolio extended in a lot of different countries. And because it was the core value that we sold to our clients, so we had to really invest in it. And this is when we really realized that IP was an excellent tool for young innovative companies, because of course it's a protection tool, both defensive and offensive. But what's interesting to realize is that it's also a very strong business tool. And I have two examples with energysquare. The first one is that we were able to totally change our business model from B2C to licensing thanks to IP, because we already had patents and a lot of other IP assets. And when you negotiate a licensing agreement, you need to have strong IP tools behind you to sell something, to sell know-how, firmware, IP, etc. And then it helped us in the negotiation of the licensing agreements to get more value, to increase the level of the royalties that we could get when we license our IP. So we really start seeing it as a business tool. And also we saw it as an analytic tool, because when you start doing IP maps, IP patent mapping, and a lot of research about patents, you can find ways to set your research and development in the right direction, invest in areas where your competitors are not investing and where you think there is a high potential, take the right strategic choices for your product and for your company, and to know also who on the market can be interested or not in partnering with you, depending on the IP assets they already have and how they compare to your IP assets that you developed.
Very well done. I'm really impressed because you started working with the engineering school. You got some help, although there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no tech transfer at that time.
No.
It was like collaboration. And then you reached out to the French intellectual property agency to get some help.
Mhm.
And most of the startups and SMEs just don't dare doing it. So you started this step, and then you learned directly from the experts. Okay. And from the licensing perspective, I understand that the first IP that your company has filed might be a patent. Okay. Did you choose to file a patent at the national level, at the French level, or directly at the European level? How actually you built your strategy? And then the following question will be about the licensing. How did you actually create this licensing strategy working with, I suppose, non-European companies and still kept the protection?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a very good question. So at the beginning, we only had one patent in France. Then we filled the PCT process and we extended it in other countries, and we invested quite early in some trademarks as well. Obviously, website domain names, and I would say it's when we decided to focus on licensing that we started really focusing on other types of IP as well. So we organized our trade secrets, we structured our know-how, our firmware. We start building our own IP strategy to make sure everyone in the company was aware of the different IP tools that we had, knew what they could share or not under which agreements to our clients, and know the importance of IP for the company and the crucial role that it has. And then when we started negotiating our first licensing agreements, it was in 2019 with our first clients. We already had this IP well structured, and it had a huge impact in the negotiation, because if you come with only one patent, you have way less bargaining power than if you come with a patent portfolio. A lot of PCT procedures or patents that have been set already abroad. If you come with firmware that is well protected, with know-how that is well protected, with trademarks that your partner or client can use, and it really helped us increasing our bargaining power. And then the real challenge, I think, when we negotiating our licensing agreement was more around liability and guarantee clauses. So what happens if our technology fails in one product built by our clients, or what happens if there is a IP litigation around our technology. And this is what took us a lot of time to negotiate with our clients.
As finding investment is usually a big concern for startups, I would like to know a little bit more about how did you finance your IP?
Yeah, that's one of the most difficult points for young companies, especially startups, to finance IP. And it's a kind of a vicious cycle, because if you are a tech company developing real technological innovation, most of investors in their investment decision will look at your IP, how you structured it, if you have patents, if your employees give what they develop to the company, etc. And the thing is, patents are quite expensive to finance, especially when you start going in other countries. It can be tens of thousands of euros per patent. So it's a kind of vicious cycle, because you need investment to finance your patents, and to get investments you need financing. So we had the chance at the time to participate in a program of a company called France Brevet, and the program was called Patent Factory. And what they did is that they financed patent portfolios of young companies in which they believed. And then with this patent portfolio, it raises the chances to get funding. And once you get funding from investors, you would eventually reimburse what they invested in your patent portfolio, and you will get the patent portfolio in your company. So this was a very interesting program. But I think what's also really important to understand for young companies is that most IP tools are not expensive at all. When you think about it, NDA is a very powerful IP tool, and it's totally free. Trademarks are not so expensive. Know-how is free also. It's just how you organize it. And another interesting thing is that patents have a financing cycle, life cycle that is quite aligned with startup financing life cycles, because most of the cost of patents come when you want to fill it abroad. Like when you fill it in one single country, it's not so expensive, but the real cost come when you want to expand it in different countries. But you have what's called the PCT procedure that lets you 1 year and a half and more than if you count the national procedures before the real cost comes. And in a startup life, 1 year and a half is really long, and it's a timing where you generally either fail proving that your technology has a market fit, or you succeed in proving your technology has some potential, and you get some investors to finance these second steps, so to set your patents abroad.
Overall, and I know this is a bit of a tricky question, but what factors would you say have been key to the success of Energy Square?
So investing in IP from the first day, and also investing in different IP tools, not only patents, allowed us to be quite flexible and to pivot from B2C to licensing. And it really kind of saved our company, because I'm not sure if we would have succeeded in keeping a B2C model, because it was it was very expensive to finance at the time, and I think it was a right decision, and we made it thanks to IP investments. Then we had the chance to meet quite early our first clients, and they already had identified a need to which our technology answered, such as Lenovo, for example, that we met in 2019, and they were looking for innovative solutions to charge their notebooks, and we presented them as the perfect solution that they were looking for in a trade show. So we were lucky to meet them at the right moment. Then I think we also managed to find the right investors who understood our business, who understood licensing, and who could bring real value to the company. Investing a lot in research and development was also a key success for the company. And the last one maybe was to try to understand deeply the market trends, a little bit thanks to IP analytics tool as well, and to have solutions ready to be sold when the market was ready. So to try to think ahead of the market and ahead of competitors.
I see, I see a sort of pattern along the creation of your company and the success is each time you have been at the right place at the right time, meeting with the right people, and that's I think that's quite amazing. But you refer to the patent factory program that was offered by France Brevet, and it makes me think that I'm not aware of such an initiative existing at the European Union level. And I'm wondering, do you think that would really make a difference if it was offered to all European startups? How complicated that would be?
Yeah, it's so for us it totally changed the life of our company, because we had this quite large patent portfolio financed, and it really helped us get funding afterwards. Unfortunately, the patent factory program on the French level doesn't exist anymore, but I know it helped a lot of companies at the time. And yeah, I think it would be relevant to have it on a European level to identify the technologies that are really strategic for Europe, and to find some solutions to finance their IP, because on some topics we can be quite late on IP portfolios compared to US or Asian companies. So definitely we need to find some public or private tools to finance IP of young companies very early.
Yeah, I like this idea. And my next question is, what has been the biggest challenge, or maybe the biggest challenges that you had to face since the founding of Energy Square?
So financing innovation is always challenging, especially for what we could call non-conventional startups, not doing software as a service, or um, yeah, the kind of startups that enter in the strategy of the venture capitalist funds. But fortunately, I think that the funding ecosystem has evolved in Europe over the years, and now it's a more there is a more mature financing market for deep tech companies and for companies developing hardware or stronger IP. So this is a good point. And then negotiating licensing agreements as a young and small companies with tech giants is very challenging. Of course, they have more bargaining power than you at the beginning, so you really need to find tools and methods to increase your bargaining power. And for example, it can be through protecting very strongly your software or firmware. And this is what we did. We have a lot of encryption, so our clients um, can only use our firmware and run our technology into their products if we give if we give them specific keys. And so this is also increasing our bargaining power. So you can find some tools and methods not to fight with no tools against tech giants, I would say.
We have talked a lot about all the things that you have done well. So, my next question for you is, if looking back, is there anything that you would do differently now with the knowledge and that times gives you?
I think, yeah, we what I would do differently is that I think we went quite late in the to the exploring the US and Asian market. And for our technology, we sell to device OEMs, to device manufacturers that bring devices to the market. And most of our potential clients are unfortunately not in Europe, but mostly in US and Asia. So if I had to do it again, I would focus from day one on those markets and spend more time exploring these markets before the French market or European.
I guess this is something that would happen to anyone, to try to look around your house first and closer to you,
Yeah,
and perhaps not think so much about, countries that are farther away.
absolutely.
Are you working on other projects, maybe personal projects or projects related to Energy Square that you may want to share with us?
Yes, so we have two big projects in the horizon with Energy Square. The first one is to standardize contact-based charging technology, the kind of which we develop. And to do so, we need to find the right partners to build a consortium. So we already built some kind of industry alliance with a lot of tech companies. But I think in our technology field, in charging, when you think about it, all the charging technologies today are standardized. You have a USB Type-C, for a lot of devices. You have the Qi charging standard for inductive charging, and so the market needs to get together to also standardize contact-based charging technologies, and we want to be one of the leaders of this standardization. And then the second point on which we are working quite heavily is to develop data transfer in our technology in parallel of charging. And the idea would be to do a little bit like USB over contact. And one of the applications is wireless docking. So you place your laptop over a charging mat, and not only it will start charging, but it will also connect the screen of your laptops to the monitors that you can have on your desk, to the internet, etc. So to create a real data transfer interface into our technology.
That's the ecosystem being built around the energysquare solution. I love it.
Yeah, what you're saying sounds very futuristic. Yeah, but at the same time, it makes total sense. Okay, well, I'm afraid we have reached the end of our interview. Thank you so much, Timothée, for your time. It has been such a pleasure to have this chat with you. And I think you have given great advice to other startups and entrepreneurs that might be in similar positions, and perhaps they are not even considering licensing as a business model. So I think it's great that you have come here and told us about your great success story. And yeah, have a great day. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me in that podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Timothée.
Bye bye. Thank you for listening to IP Stories by 4IP Council. Visit our website on 4ipcouncil.eu to find out more and check out the links mentioned during this episode. If you liked it, remember to share and subscribe.